Hi, this is Danny Doyle, and it's time for another in-game playthrough tier list. So, if you have not been following the channel, Jacob and I recently got done with a playthrough of SoV that I labeled the Cursed Draft Run, where we had a lot of characters that we weren't allowed to use, and we had a lot of characters who were forced to go into the Cavalier class line. And so the playthrough was very cursed. It was fun, but it was cursed. And normally after all of my playthroughs, I do tier lists where we rank the units on their performance in the playthrough. So to clarify, this is not like a this is how good they are in general tier list. This is just specifically... Oh, it's so biased. It's specific to my playthrough. If that's not what you're interested in, then, you know, that's perfectly fine. There will be more content on the channel that is not that, but if you're here just to listen to Jacob and I gush about the memes that we had for roughly 30 to 40 minutes, or longer, check the timestamp, or shorter, check the timestamp, you'll see.
So we have a lot fewer units we're talking about this time than most games.
Yes, and for that reason, I've truncated the tiers. Normally I go S, A, B, C, D, F. But here, I just said A, B, C, D. I thought that having a larger number of tiers was unnecessary because then we would end up with like 2 people in each tier, right? So I thought, you know, A tier is the units who were the best in our run. B tier is people who were solid. C tier is people who we kind of had to squeeze contributions out of. Or C tier is people who... didn't really leave an impact, and D tier is people we had to really squeeze contributions out of and were frustrating for that reason. And we're just sort of going to talk about them. We can start with Alm. Jacob, I know SoV, Gaiden, one of your favorite games, Alm, one of your favorite lords. Do you want to talk about Alm for a little bit?
I would say he was pretty good in this run. I mean, he was kind of someone we had to funnel a bunch of EXP into. Killer Bow's a funny weapon.
Killer Bow is a funny weapon. Alm went through a very weird... Normally Alm, his class line is fixed. He's the one unit who can't use pitchforks. Well, I guess Celica also. And he's not a villager, so you can't choose which way to go. But Alm went through a very funny class line where he started out as a mercenary, you know, the sword unit. And then he became a mage. He was our only mage for a very long time. And then he transitioned back into mercenary, just like a sword unit. And then he transitioned to archer. He was using a bow for a while. And then he transitioned into hero using falchion to kill the final boss.
Reclassing. Lots of it.
Lots of reclassing. I'm not a huge fan of reclassing. It's hard to deny that Alm was like a big contributor. I think that he didn't stand out in the same way that a couple of other units did. I don't think I'd put him in A tier, right? I think that, like... You know, as much as we joke about, like, oh, he was a mage, like, Levensword Alm is a knockoff version of Luthier, who is a knockoff version of Mage Villager. So you're a knockoff of a knockoff. You know, obviously, once he got the promotion, that was nice, and he did kill Duma, but he needed a lot of help for it, and he was pretty Omega grinded, too, so... I'm thinking B tier. Can you talk me down, or do you think this is where he goes?
I would say that sounds about fine. Especially just how much he had to contribute early on, especially.
Yeah.
He just didn't have units aside from Gray, Tobin, and Clive for a bit there.
And then him using, like, Thunderclap to attack people from free range in the finale of Act 1, because we didn't have an archer, so the only way that we could attack those are... Because there's the archers on, like, the palisades, right? Who are shooting down, and he had to use Thunderclap to attack up. It was just some silly stuff. The Armor Knights on Desai's Fortress, like, just... Alm being our only way to deal damage. Like, it definitely felt bad, but it was also... It felt good because it felt silly.
It was the best answer, but it sure did not feel very good.
I mean, was it even the best answer? Because we had Armor Crush on our Cavaliers.
That is true.
I think it was Tobin specifically hit Armor Crush, so we'll talk about him first. Tobin. Tobin, as much as, like, you know, Cavalier is the worst class line for all of the villagers, Tobin showed that, like, Cavalier is still good. Like, the reason Cav's bad is you just get Clive and Matilda, right?
Yeah, and they do everything you'd ever want them to do.
So it's redundant. Like, it's a waste of a villager, potentially.
Yeah.
And I do think that the 4 villagers are most impactful in the early game when, like, you don't really have the need for a Cav. Like, you don't get the Rider's Bane during Act 1, right? Or you're not using it during Act 1 at the very least. Until the very end, right? And then Clive's doing it anyway.
Yeah, you get it in Sophia Castle after part 1 final.
Yeah. So I thought you used the Rider's Bane for part 1 final. Is that the Steel Lance that it's Clive with the Speed Fountain?
It's the Steel Lance.
Yeah.
It's the Steel Lance.
But we did that with Tobin. Like, we proved it was replicable. Like, the units in SoV are actually pretty interchangeable. The reason that, like, the villagers don't want to be...
promo.
Yeah, because Gaiden promo. Like, there's things that make them stand out, right? Tobin was probably our best unit on Alm side for, like, 70% of the time. Would you say?
Yeah, until we could get Clive into Hunter Volley Bow Knight.
Yeah. Hunter's Volley Clive... Well, so Hunter's Volley Clive was able to delete stuff. I guess he also, like... He also enemy phased pretty well. I still kind of want to put Tobin in A tier. But
Yeah,
I could be talked down to B. I could be talked down to B.
I don't think we should count Tobin out. I think he was, like, amazing.
Never count Tobin out. Never count Tobin out. Okay.
Remember all the work he was helping out with in, like, early part 4, where,
He would double
we,
Cavaliers.
yeah, he was, like, doubling the Paladins.
I mean, you know who else doubled
He was
Paladins?
doing a
You know who else doubled Paladins?
Gray sure did.
Never say he has speed issues. Never say he has speed issues. You know, what makes Gray the worst villager? What makes Gray the worst? We didn't even give him all of them. We gave him a Pegasus cheese. I'm pretty sure the fountains went to Tobin, right?
I think so. I think we gave those early fountains to Tobin.
So, like, never count Gray out. I think we had the most blessed Gray I've ever fucking seen. I haven't seen a lot of Grays. We also had Gold Knight bases Gray. That is true. But does Gold Knight bases even give speed? Like, I don't think it's a class line that gives speed, right?
Not super fast, but it gives some. More, because Gray's problem is the speed growth.
Yeah. I love I took a screenshot and I sent it to all of my Valentia pilled friends to deal psychic damage. The battle forecast of Gray in a Paladin doubling with the Rider's Bane. It was just, it was very funny.
Cursed image, but very fun.
Yeah, I mean, it was something that, like, Tobin could do, right? Like, Tobin was just better than Gray in every respectable sense.
But
Gray was still useful. Gray feels like the baseline definition of a C tier unit. To me.
Yeah.
Like, everything he did could have been done better by specifically Tobin, but by someone else. And yet, everything he did was still valuable.
It was very important. Again, it's hard to think about it because on Alm side we had 4 units for half of it and 5 for the other half.
Well,
So it's like,
we got Mycen eventually.
Yeah. Okay, I'm sorry. So for 49%, 49%, and 2%.
2%! It was the 2 most important maps in the game. The 2 hardest maps in the game. And Mycen got us through without Mycen, I don't think we would have beaten the Renea Witch map. Like, he was actually pretty crucial there.
So important there.
We can talk about Mycen now, right? Like, is Mycen also C tier? I feel like Mycen's also C tier. He was better than Gray, but he was around for 2 maps.
He kind of just shows up.
Yeah.
To be like, hey, I'm a Gold Knight, I guess.
I don't think of Mycen. I don't think of Mycen as a Goto. I can understand people who say he is one, but I don't think of him that way. He doesn't quite feel right.
He doesn't feel like an anti-soft block or a like assurance you can kill like the final enemies or boss.
Yeah. But in this run he kind of functioned as one because like I'm not sure how we were killing all of those units in Act 5, specifically the Renea map again, without him. Which I think the reason he sort of was so essential is like it really just came down to he was a body. like more than anything. He was a
just
body.
Someone else to pull fire.
But like we need, like you said, we had 4 units for the longest time, and we had 5 units. And like one of those units was a saint. Yeah, just casting recover. We'll get to her, but I think that he's also C tier because he was just a body, and it was a very useful body. Yeah. But like at the end of the day, if I had drafted like Sirius instead of Mycin, I think they would have done the exact same fucking thing. Like it was literally just this is a body with Gold Knight bases. I mean, if I had left Cliff and Faye on Alm's side, I think they could have done similar things. Cliff was pretty disappointing. Would it? We had Super May!
That is true.
Cliff was so disappointing.
Like, he had a huge ending there, doing, like, the funny Gradivus stuff.
It was very funny. Cool. The true wielder of the Gradivus. The iconic, the destined. God, that was so funny. We put him on Alm's side by accident, too. We put him on Alm's side by accident, which is where he should have been. I should have... It was fun sending them Zelic aside. I don't think it was correct. Like, I guess they were theoretically a little bit helpful very early on Act 3. As, again, just bodies. But Zelic aside didn't need bodies so much as it needed, like, competent combat units, and they were not that.
There is a reason why the original Gaiden does not give you Cavaliers on Celica route.
What do you mean? The original Gaiden has Atlas in it.
True.
He's a Cavalier, canonically.
The best class for him.
Have you not been watching? There's a YouTuber currently doing a playthrough of Gaiden, and in that playthrough, Atlas is a Gold Knight, and like it's awesome. So I think
it's very awesome.
I think you should look that up, Jacob. I think you'd be surprised at how effective it is. Maybe I'll link it below. Maybe I'll link their channel. Maybe I'll just link their channel instead of your channel. So that
I'll just wait.
Just click on the end card.
7 months for this video to come out. Click the link and see whose video it is.
The joke is that I'm describing Jacob's playthrough. For those who are not aware, at the time of recording, Jacob is currently doing a Gaiden playthrough. It'll be long done by the time this comes out in like 20 years. But you should still check it out if you haven't. It's called like Gaiden and Chill, I think is what it's called. Like Gaiden and Chill.
I'm bad at naming things.
I think it's a cool name. I think it's a nice name because it's literally just like a chill Gaiden playthrough. You chill with the Cavalier Atlas. I think we can move them at the same time. I made D tier for them specifically. No one else goes here. I made D tier for them specifically. I was very happy that I trained them. They were helpful in the tower specifically as bodies. I do not think it was a mistake to train them because I had bodies in the tower, right? And I guess in that sense, maybe... Yeah, they did stuff in Final too. But the reason I'm thinking of tower, right, is like, that is the biggest aspect where I can justify having sent them to Celica route. I don't know if their contributions in tower could have been replicated by just, like, relying more on Crinstria and Super May. I don't know. They definitely would have done more for Alm's army than Celica's army, but the question is, would Celica's army have been able to survive the tower without the tiny bit of help that they give? Like, if they were on Alm's side, they would probably also be in C.
Just overshadowed by...
Yeah, just overshadowed by Tobin. Don't count Tobin out.
Never count Tobin out.
Sorry, I interrupted you. What were you saying?
Oh, I was just saying never count Tobin out.
That's a good philosophy. Tobin, truly the best Cavalier in Alm's side. You know, everyone debates who's the better Cavalier, Clive versus Matilda, and that honestly confuses me because Clive's Bow Knight.
Clive was Hunter Volley.
Hunter's always good.
Killer Bow.
Killer Bow's good. 1-5 range.
Yeah, 1-5 range pretty sick.
Even 1-4 range too. 1-4 range even before promoting to get 1-5 range was very good.
Yeah. Pretty cool as a villager. 4 movement.
Honestly, even as a villager, like, we gave him, I think we gave him a steel sword and the 11 sword. It's been so long. We, like, traded the swords
Something
for
like
him
that.
in Alm. I don't think
'Cause we
this
made
guy
him
can
paladin
go...
first, then villager.
Yeah. Well, so we made him paladin to get paladin bases. I think
Yeah.
Clive is sort of the... Because, like, May isn't really an example of pitchforks being broken. We'll talk about May and what happened with her when we got to her. Clive, I think, is the ultimate example of pitchforks being incredibly broken. Because Bow Knight, the archer line was designed to be a trade-off. You don't get stats. You get, like, you have stats, obviously, but you don't get good stats. But the
They're bad.
trade-off is you outrange almost everyone. You can counter everyone. And eventually you have both movement and range. Even without factoring in Killer's Bow, because I do think that was a bit overtuned and they probably didn't realize how strong it was. So even without Hunter's Volley, right? Even if we just don't count Hunter's Volley, we just count, like, you know, you use a Silver Bow or whatever, right? The trade-off is a large range and, like, being able to delete people from halfway across the map in exchange for, like, worse stats. You're not supposed to be able to enemy phase with Bow Knights. Despite the fact that, like, you can on Celica's side if you, like, stack plus res stuff, you're kind of not supposed to be able to. Clive got Paladin bases, so he got pretty good stats. Like, Paladin gives solid stats. You know, Paladin being the weakest villager isn't because Paladin is bad. Paladin is a good class line. It's just redundant. But if you get those bases and put them into a class with 1-5 range, like, that is one of the most busted things you can do. It's why you dread loop, right? Like, you dread loop to get sniper class.
Yeah, that's the silly thing about dread looping. You dread loop into something like Bow Knight, and now you have, like, bajillions of stats, but you have 1-5 range now.
Mm-hmm. I've seen similar things with Valbow, the Valbow builds, where you make Valbar a Baron, get the massive Baron bonuses, and then immediately pitchfork him into Archer, just in time for the desert and swamp areas where Armor Knight stats, like, you can have as many stats as you want in your low move.
You just do whatever you want.
Yeah. And so I think Bow Knight Clive, I don't see any way that he was anywhere other than A tier, do you?
Yeah, definitely. Super, super helpful. Just to have a bow in Alm route, please. Someone to help outrange witches too, so we don't have to eat their counters.
Yeah, and
Or
he
Arcanists,
can counter witches. Like, we gave him some res
them
tools. We gave him some res tools, like some res fountains, I think. I know Atlas got a few.
I believe so.
But I think Clive did as well.
Because we knew we wanted him to, like, counter or whatever the enemy magic users.
So, very, 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 very useful. Very, very useful. A less useful use, or I guess it was still a useful use of the pitchfork, but it's much less impressive. We joked about, like, Matilda being the ultimate NOS tank, but Draco Shield was doing the heavy lift in there. I am not tiering Matilda on the basis of her having permanent Draco Shield, right?
Yeah, 13 defense and res is a lot.
She was our only healer for the entirety of Almside. The fact that we could throw Draco Shield on her and, like, it made the Renea stuff salvageable, like, is very good. But again, like, Draco Shield's doing the work there, not Matilda.
Yeah, that's just the Draco Shield.
I do think it was silly that, like, you know, we were able to use Pitchfork to overcome a weakness in my draft team, right? I think that was cool and silly. So, like, it's another, you know, potential use for Pitchfork. It's not really usable in vanilla play. I guess in an Iron Man, if you save a Pitchfork and, like, it turns out Silk and Faye both die, you can Pitchfork Matilda or Pitchfork Delthea in order to get healing available. Or, like, on the flip side, like, you know, if someone on Celica's side Pitchfork to heal. Like, it's potentially useful in, like, Iron Man, and then, like, Draft, obviously, is the big one. Like, the entire... I literally picked her because I was like, I need a cleric.
Yes.
I think I made a joke during the Forever draft where I was like, my team is all Cavaliers. Anyway, I'm picking Matilda. But, like, when I made that joke, I was immediately thinking, like, Matilda is my healer. Because you don't know about my Pitchfork.
We need.
where does the only healer on Alm's side go? Because she was very necessary, but it was like it's not much, but it's honest work is what it feels like.
She recover on people.
Excuse you, combat was trash. She killed 3 Dreadlords in the final map.
Holding a Draco shield in one hand.
Irrelevant. Is this fair or is this fair? Like, it's one of these, right? It's gotta be. I don't know.
Gosh, that's really... Because I almost think C, just because, like, outside of funny Draco Shield stuff, but, like, she was kind of the only healer.
She was the only healer. We had provisions available, potentially.
Yeah, a lot of people were just eating stuff out of Alm's pockets.
I think this is... I think you're probably right that it's C. I think... I was leaning towards B, but I think I was overrating her. I think despite saying it, I was factoring Draco Shield in. I think that's a thing that can happen sometimes, is you say something, but then you factor it in anyway, right?
It's hard to turn part of your brain off.
It is. Speaking of something I want to turn off, or don't want to turn off, my love for Mei. Like, we're putting her there, right?
She went crazy.
I was very tempted to include an S tier explicitly for her.
Just for Mei.
Yeah. She's not a demonstration of pitchforks being broken. Like, I made her a flyer because I wanted another flyer for the swamps and deserts, but, like, make no mistake, she's broken because she leveled up to, like, level 20, then looped back to Pegasus Knight.
Yeah.
She is an example of the grinding that SoV allows and sometimes requires being broken. She was power leveled to fucking oblivion, and then we patched up her only weak point, defense, by throwing a shield on her. And it gave her res, too. Still.
She just killed everything she looked at.
Still baller. Like, in her case, right, because Matilda... We gave her the Draco Shield. The Draco Shield can carry anyone. In her case, you might be like, oh, well, you know, Mei had exclusive access to, like, the Ryan Shield or whatever, right? The big thing is that she had a single area where she was struggling, which was defense, and everything else, her stats were fucking amazing. And I think that in cases like those, you know, like, we gave the Rider's Bane to Tobin, and we give him credit for using that to kill people. I think that you can give people credit for how well they utilize items if the way that they're utilizing items is, like, unique to them. Like, it's utilized in a way that is unique to them, I guess you would say.
And to be honest, I wouldn't say Matilda was making good use of the Draco Shield, because I think that would have been better on, you know, someone up on the front lines, more or less.
I mean, she was often on the front lines. Other than in the final map, she was a frontliner, I would say. I'm gonna push back against that. I think... Yeah, I think she was our best user of the Draco Shield, personally. Because everyone else wanted a weapon.
Yeah.
Like, I think she was our best Draco Shielder.
The killer bows.
And, like, it's funny to be like, Nos Draco Shield as well. Like, she was fucking unkillable.
Yeah.
I think she was the best user of the Draco Shield, but I also think the Draco Shield was doing the work there. Whereas, like, Mei... Even without the Ryan Shield, Mei would still be, like, killing everything. And she would just live, like, 2/3 as many combats, right? As she does with the Ryan Shield. And we get to see a replica of like, that, because we gave Katria the Vague Shield, I think it was called. They gave the same stat bonus.
Yeah, very similar shield.
And as much as I cried Cringetria, like, she was usable, she was useful. She's either B or C tier, I don't know. You're the White Wing expert. You go off. You go off.
White Wing person. I mean, hey, free 10 damage on terrors that flies over swamp and desert. That sounds pretty useful. I mean, who else were we using on Celica's side? The Gold Knights in the swamp?
We were using Mei is the thing. I think Crinstria looked bad because of Mei, but everyone looks bad because of Mei, right?
Yeah. I think she was still doing some pretty good contributions throughout it.
Do you think that her good contributions land her in B tier? You can't sell me on A. Like, I'm just gonna say that right straight out.
I'm not gonna try. I was gonna say B.
I'll buy that. I'll buy that. We've been sort of skipping over Celica, mostly because, like, the ones who we talked about were sort of related to each other, right? We went Pitchfork, 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 White Wing. Like, Pitchfork, 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 and then White Wing to White Wing, right? Because I think Crinstria suffered a lot from the May comparison, but I think it's a relevant comparison to, like, you know, point out that May on the Ryan Shield and Crinstria on the Vague Shield, like, they weren't relying on those as much. Especially May wasn't relying on it as much as Crinstria kind of needed it more. But, like, again, she utilized it well. We can talk about the Queen herself, though.
She gave us a lot of food in the early game.
She did.
Heal ourselves.
She gave us a lot of food with the dagger. Actually, I didn't even think about giving her credit for that, but we should. She was the only one who could.
She was the only person who could use it.
And eventually she became the only healer. Like, she was casting Recover on May during the zombie map. It was super helpful. She was our only sword user for a while, which was, again, Golden Dagger plus, like, I guess not Brave Sword, because Sonya... Oh, no, Sonya needed to promote to get Brave Sword.
Yeah.
I think Celica's B tier.
Yeah, I would think so.
I'll put them next to each other.
They belong next to each other.
They do. I agree. I love them. Like, I know it's a hetero ship. Don't cancel me. Like, I love them. They're great. They're great. There are good gay ships in Fire Emblem as well. But, like, we're not talking about those games. We're talking about this one. I love this ship. They're very good. Here, if it makes you happy, we'll do this. They can be next to each other, too. Sonya, Sonya, Sonya. It was fun to make her into a Dread Fighter by giving her Dean's Blade. It wasn't good, right? It wasn't good.
No.
Do we have to say anything about her? Like, she's honestly almost here.
I'm struggling to remember things that she did.
She was mostly a second healer. She was mostly a second healer that we memed around with, like, the Dean's Blade and sometimes Excalibur. But you, like, 90%, 70% of her actions, probably, were casting Recover on one of our White Wings. And
that's what I'm feeling.
That's useful. You know, being the second Recover bot already makes her worse than Celica, and then, like, Celica has the food and everything going for her as well. And, like, Seraphim against the dragons and stuff, like... Yeah, I was kind of disappointed.
Sonya not having Seraphim really sucks.
Yeah.
Seraphim is so useful.
She's
so
still...
It's kind of upsetting that they just took it away from her.
She's still obviously the better choice compared to Dean, because, like, Dean can only be a Dread Fighter, but we've demonstrated that Sonya can be both a Dread Fighter and a Mage in the same playthrough. So, checkmate Lobberals. Fuck off, Dean.
Easy.
That is a joke. For anyone who thinks that I seriously think... Like, Dean is the better choice, right? But...
Yes.
She was fun. I think that Dean is pretty significantly strictly better, but I think I'm glad I played with Sonya to recognize that, like, she's not terrible. She doesn't really offer anything unique. Like, she has the rewarp, I guess, which is fairly unique but doesn't really help.
I like using Sonya more, just because I think having the spell list and becoming a Recover user is much more interesting than just a dude who I give the Brave Sword to and watch him go wee.
She is incredibly usable. He's incredibly usable and also fairly replaceable. Like, I know the meme is like 4 Dread Fighters, but I honestly, I don't know, I'd rather have 3 White Wings than 4 Dread Fighters. If I had to choose, I've done a playthrough where I brought everyone who could be a Dread Fighter into the tower as a Dread Fighter, without pitchforking. Without pitchforking. So I made Atlas a Myrmidon, and I brought all of the, like, all 4 of the regular Myrmidons, and then also Atlas as Dread Fighters into the tower, so more than half of my squad was, or I guess it was half, because it's 10 people. Half my squad was Dread Fighters, and it was very funny, mostly because, like, I just kept getting crits, because I think I forged, like, 3 Brave Swords. Yeah, no, I sold... No. I sold so much food and beer that I was able to get a Brave Sword for every Myrmidon, actually. I remember this now. And 2
That's
Killer Bows.
incredible.
No, I got a Brave Sword for every Myrmidon and 2 Killer Bows. One for Python and one for, Leon. Yeah. And...
That's a lot.
And then I was just like, I think it was them and then, like, a couple of mages, in the tower. Yeah, no, it was fun. It was fun, but I do think that, like, I don't know. Maybe if I ever played this game again that wasn't Zero Growth, because Zero Growth goes to him, obviously. But if I ever played again, I would grab her, probably. And then...
She's a much more fun unit to use.
And speaking of fun, I had a lot of fun bowing him down.
He'll bow him down.
Oh, I want to put him in A tier so badly, but I don't think I can justify it. He was...
all the times we had to go running back to promote him.
Oh, that too. I was gonna say skill. Like, his skill... It's easy to, like, recency bias, be like, yeah, he had 100 hit against Duma. He had 100 hit against this person. He had, like, 60 hit against a lot of people. And we had to pump... And that was after we pumped so many skill stat boosters into him and got him a Celica support. Like, I think at most he can be B tier. Yeah, B for bow him down.
I know this is like weird to tack onto it, but the number of times we had to fight through so many reinforcements to promote this guy was so frustrating.
I agree, and a lot of them aren't on camera, but there was a lot. But I agree. I think it's fair to penalize him for that. I think it's fair to penalize him for that because it's his fucking fault. It's his fucking fault for showing up as a villager. God damn!
Villager.
I'm glad. So I get it. Customize him, right? Pick what class you want, right? Show up in Act 2, please, buddy. It could be halfway through Act 2. Like, what if he was just hanging out with Valbar? You know, Valbar, Leon, and Kamui are just like, hey, have you met our friend?
I don't know.
Have you met our friend Atlas? He seems pretty cool. Not only is it part 3, but it's after you get the White Wings. Or rather, after you get the green White Wings.
It's in, like, the most awkward state of part 2, where it's, like, the next shrine is too far away, but the previous shrine is so far back.
Yeah. And then...
There's no winning.
Because he ended up under-leveled, we had to... And, oh my god. So the next shrine isn't even too far away. It's literally... You can go to it, and then he runs away from you after the battle. Like, the next shrine is right fucking there. No, Atlas, I just want to promote you! I'm not abandoning your quest for revenge.
Yeah, it's annoying.
I guess it's iconic of one of the frustrations I have with this game.
Understandable.
But that's our list.
Woo.
I am sorry to the Cliff and Faye fans. Like, I did have fun with them, and I am not discounting their contributions. But most of their contributions were more funny or being a body. Like, the canonical owner of the Gradivis, wasn't even doing the most damage with the Gradivis.
It was all for one map.
Look, he's gonna be good in FE12 when he comes back with a mask on and calls himself Camus.
Exactly. I'll be looking forward to it.
Well, our next playthrough is not an FE12 one, but if you would like to see what playthrough I have up my sleeve next, make sure you hit subscribe, ring that bell so you don't miss any notifications, and check out Jacob's channel, because there's some cool stuff there. About 10,000 years ago at time of upload, there was a Gaiden series, and probably some other cool stuff now, although I don't know what it is because we're recording this very far in the past.
There was also another series that has Danny in it if you need a reason to go watch. Danny's there.
And so is Walt.
Walt.
Good night, gamers.
See ya.